Hi, everyone. Welcome to an overview of AVLI's Learner Skills Initiative, or the LSI. So first off, I'd like to just say that the LSI, while a cornerstone and foundational idea to all of the work that goes into AVLI, our mission, our vision, our values, um, it's not something that you are necessarily required to overtly integrate into your course at this point in time. It's something that we're inviting you to consider, to reflect on through the course of this professional learning, um, both in terms of what each of these items means, these concepts, these practices attached to the concepts for student learning, but also what they mean in relation to what effective communication, engagement, and assessment practices are, and how those three AVLI pillars enliven or incarnate some of the underlying desires of the Learning Skills Initiative. And I think once we start to see that connection, we start to realize that we might be doing some of these things already, although a little bit without intention. And because we might be lacking the intention of that design, we may not necessarily be drawing our students' attention to how some of the activities or lessons or design elements that we're creating for them tie back into our goals for them, our desires for their ongoing learning and formation. So we, throughout this 2021-2022 year, will be piloting some further integration of LSI into a couple of courses, but we invite you to explore any of these elements in your own courses as overtly and directly as you'd like. You can always reach out to us for assistance, engagement, data sharing, tool reference, etc., if you're interested in some of these things at this point. And otherwise, we'll invite your thinking, learning, and open-mindedness as we step forward through this year and into the next. So, super quick, as quick as we can. Moving from right to left, you see the general to the specific. You see the two general categories of student learning and formation that underpin a Catholic education, obviously of which AVLI or in which AVLI participates. So eruditio, the acquisition of knowledge, the head. So we're kind of interested, as schools are, in fostering knowledge and understanding in our students, which is super important, but is typical, of any school. We're also simultaneously interested in pietat, formation of an individual's moral personal character in the service of the common good. And that's where things kind of get interesting, because how does my individual learning, my dispositions to learning, the skills that I have access to as I learn, that help me learn, through which I learn, how do those things actually set out a trajectory for me to develop and form my character, to enable me to have the mindset, disposition, and skills to apply my learning in action in the world for the common good. Again, not in an ideological sense. We're not sort of telling people what that is exactly. That's theirs. We trust in the education to guide the values to which people put these things. And so we can see sort of quickly, I guess, moving from that left to right, in the knowledge individual sort of component of this experience, we talk about, I guess, hill, skill, will, right? The hill we climb, tied to the mindset that we have. Studies show, and when you get into the next couple of activities down into this first module, there's a little video that'll elaborate a bit more, but the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset that underpins a lot of student success or challenge. Research shows extensively how important growth mindset is. And so how do we help to engender that as part of the culture of our classes, as opportunities for students to express, not necessarily in words, but in the doing? Studies, well, the comment has been made that the more you say, I have a growth mindset, I have a growth mindset, is actually an expression of a fixed mindset, because you're rooting something in what it is, not in what it's constantly becoming in context. And so we want to find ways to help growth mindset exist, right? And again, there'll be more on all these things a little later on, but we do that then through the ways that we motivate, the ways that we invite goal setting, planning, time management, These are all experiences that can foster and are expressions of and can work backward from the specific back into the category in the general. I guess start going that way with mirroring. Um, that a shift in mindset, a move from fixed to growth, and that's not something that's light and easy to do. ACT, counseling, therapy practices, and psychology. A lot of folks recognize how challenging mindsets that are tied to linguistic structures in ourselves, who we think we are, the narratives that bind us, all kinds of really interesting ways through which mindsets are sort of created, reinforced, sort of stabilized. Even when we try to destabilize them, there's parts of us that we're going to pull back. So it's a thing, but it's a super important thing, and so it's something we want to learn more about. And because as teachers, we have a lot of intrinsic motivation to be the best that we can be, for and with students, understanding more about mindsets and what we can do with that is really important. We move then into the skill. So getting up that hill, what skill? We got our academic behaviors. Here's doing school. And a lot of students who are good students have learned how to do school and be good without necessarily having language for that, which means that their metacognitive understanding of how they do what they do is limited, which means that there's still room for development and growth. So even with online, like an AVLI online course or school or institute, you're gonna have a lot of students that are high achieving or have a lot of motivation and drive. What exactly that motivation or drive is maybe relative. But when they struggle, and if they struggle, what are they struggling with? Is it the content, or is it some underlying skills maybe that we as teachers, seeing this as part of our curriculum, as part of our our course outcomes and standards that we're working towards, because we're not just in the knowledge sector of outcomes but also in the formation sector, and that these things are scaffolded towards that. Maybe these are things that we need to consider teaching directly. And then how do we do that? What resources do we find? Again, we are here as an AVLI team to support that reflection, support that wondering, support that research, looking for resources, and to work together with you if you're interested in building something that may not be in your course yet, but that you feel and know is of value. And so again, hopefully we'll show some of that through the course of this course, and inspire some of that. Um, then we move into academic perseverance. So the will to apply the skill to get up the hill. Nice, not mine, but important. And this is kind of the limit point, transitioning into self-reflection that moves us out of the self to the relationship with others. But studies show that grit and perseverance, when kids struggle, if they haven't, or if they don't have that kind of resolve, oftentimes high achieving students, the high achievement is no indicator of success if they can't overcome struggle by the effort, determination, and they have the resources, skills, and experiences to figure out how to do that. So how do we build some of that into our courses? How do we build opportunities for that? And again, there'll be references to this later. Help seeking. How do we invite opportunity for peer collaboration, peer help seeking? Independent learners, so how they help seek first, then move to peers, then move to instructor. What's that process look like? How do we set that out in our course intentionally, explicitly, clear communication, so that it engenders emotional engagement, behavioral engagement, et cetera, et cetera. So again, you see how the line moving from erudicio to pietà then kind of cuts through the self-reflection, because as we go from the help seeking, that's tied to a kind of communication, which leads us possibly, it's a window, kind of that the portal, but that kind of that zone that I can't remember the word I'm looking for. But anyways, that point at which that communication can lead us into self-assessment, into that reflective, metacognitive kind of sensibility that allows us to think critically, not only about content, but about ourselves as learners and about learning in general, and allows us then to shift that perspective through reflection into the relationships that we have. And so suddenly we're talking about formation elements here. We're talking about relationship. We're talking about the the purposes of our learning, not simply an extrinsic motivation for a grade, but maybe the desire to connect the change in us and the worlds we inhabit, live in, the problems of those worlds, the relationships within those worlds, as sort of contexts into which our learning can be actioned. And so things like uh, applying our learning into social justice, whatever that might mean, letter writing, action based, I don't know, some kind, whatever that might mean in a using math to help build a greenhouse or do something, um, you know, offering opportunity for relationship, diversity and pluralism, ecology, environmental perspective. There's a whole open set that really happens here at self transcendence, that is where the student begins to define what that actually means. And if teachers are inviting co-creation or inviting conversation, and they learn about who their student learners are and the worlds that they come from, the places that they inhabit, then all of a sudden what we learn is that we can't really have a course pre-designed in totality on September 1st, because we need to learn who our learners are, and then the course will unfold. The content may be sort of set for us, um, but how we're going to teach it, in what way, what kinds of activities, um, the kinds of dynamics and relationships that might engender opportunity with students, and the way that we might construct ways for students to show us that they've learned may become really relative to the students, and thus more authentic. So when all of that kind of stuff comes together, we get this fulsome view of how the Learning Skills Initiative is really about particular concrete skills and behaviors that really move out into a general understanding of how human people learn, grow, and exist in relation to each other when they try to do good things. Um, so that's sort of an overview. Again, at this point, we're inviting you to reflect on this, to hopefully get a sense for its importance within your own course, and through the course of the summer professional learning, to begin to imagine how that might be realized in a lot of different kinds of ways. And again, we invite you to reach out to us if it's something you want to explore concretely through tasks, tools, activities, etc. in your course. Thanks very much for your time.